I'm Sharon Betters, and you are listening to the Daily Treasure podcast produced by Mark Inc. Ministries. Thank you so much for joining us. We are continuing in our special series called Treasures Along the Way, and our guest writer this week is my husband, Chuck. Today's devotional is Why God Can Be Trusted, and today's treasure is Hebrews 6, verse 10. God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him, as you have helped his people and continue to help them. John decided to leave the little church and return home to his family. Already disappointed hearts sunk in fear. Others had already left the small house church, but John had been part of the core group. His attendance had been sporadic lately. He seemed distant and weary, but they just thought he was busier than normal. If he quit, who could stand up under the growing, spreading persecution? No one in their group was a stranger to the public taunts, social and economic isolation, and suspicion of their family and friends, as we read in Hebrews 10:33. In the past, such treatment had pulled them together. They were proud to be identified as followers of Christ, as we read in Hebrews 10:33. Suffering was part of the call. They thought back to the times they had publicly associated with others who were imprisoned. You can see this in Hebrews 10, verses 32 through 34. Even the loss of their possessions did not dissuade them from their newfound faith. Though encouraging one another with words and deeds was increasingly difficult, they had not quit. But each day brought challenges that made perseverance more excruciating. Why did life have to be so hard? Didn't they serve the God of the universe? Couldn't he see what was happening to his children? Maybe John and all the others were right. Maybe it was time to give up and go back to life before Christ. What counsel would you give to these discouraged Hebrew Christians? What if you knew their circumstances would not improve and the persecution was spreading? Have you ever longed for what was, wishing you could go back to a happier day? Perhaps your happier day is actually a fantasy. What you imagine would make you content with your life. These Hebrew Christians wanted to go back to what was. The fires of persecution were heating up, and though none of them had died for their faith, others had, and rumors of martyrdom were growing closer and hotter. The purpose of the letter to the Hebrews was to exhort these believers to persevere in the journey marked out by God for them. We can read that in Hebrews 12, verses 1 through 4. The writer did not cover his readers with cliches. He told them why God could be trusted. They needed a macro worldview that saw the purposes, promises, and character of God through a spiritual wide-angle lens. They needed to understand biblical truth, just as we do. I can relate to these Hebrew Christians because I wanted to give up when our 16-year-old son, Mark, and his friend, Kelly, were in a fatal car accident. I wanted to go back to what was, that perfect moment when all was right with the world. Hebrews was written for people like me, and maybe you. The writer of Hebrews seems to know the questions people like us ask when darkness covers our soul. Like, God, where are you? Why won't you speak to him? In Hebrews 1, verses 1 through 2, he gives us the answer. In the past, God spoke to our forefathers through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. In other words, friends, God has spoken through the prophets, in his word, and the sacrifice of his Son. He has said everything that needs to be said. Hear him. Or this question, my life is a mess. I'm so afraid of today, let alone the future. Can I really trust God? We read the answer in Hebrews 1:3. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. In other words, Jesus sustains the universe with one word. Can he not sustain you? God is sovereign, and you can trust him. Throughout the rest of Hebrews, the writer reminds his readers that God has already kept this promise of redemption by sending his son, Jesus. We can trust him to keep all of his promises, just as he said. In this messy world, when we want to quit our journey of faith, to give up because the heat of life is scorching our souls like these broken believers, we need to revisit our worldview, the grid through which we view all of life, and a place to start is simple. God is sovereign. You can trust him. The real question is, will you? Friends, as we continue to travel along our life journey and we discover those treasures along the way, those treasures that give us hope, we're asking you to consider carefully how you can be a treasure of hope for someone else through our Treasures of Hope non-event event. Typically, we have a big event where we invite people to be sponsors. We invite people to give toward the vision of offering help and hope, especially to hurting people. But this year, we felt led strongly by the Lord to not have an in-person event, but to ask people to connect with us through our Treasures of Hope non-event event. For this year, we won't be pouring money into expenses for an event. Instead, every dollar that is given, every penny that is given toward our goal of $100,000 will go right into the production of resources designed to offer help and hope to hurting people. We know that this is a really big ask. It is a big event, and yet to the Lord, it isn't that big. One of our board members encouraged us to think even bigger than $100,000. And so we are encouraged by the enthusiasm and by those who are already given to this very big ask. We're hoping that the Daily Treasure family will give at least $10,000 toward this incredible goal of $100,000. But more important, we're asking you to pray that God will do something amazing and that people will listen to the nudge, whether it is to give $1, $10, $1,000, $50,000, maybe a matching gift, whatever it is that the Lord is impressing on your heart. And know that every dollar is going to go toward producing resources like the Daily Treasure podcast. We are doubling our resources for Ask Dr. Betters and for our podcast. We have some work that needs to be done on our website. We need to add some staff. We are so excited about the future of Mark Inc. And we pray that you will be excited and you'll be part of this journey, this great vision of raising $100,000 by the end of October. Go to markinc.org where you can safely give. Pray as God leads us on this incredible journey. I'm Sharon Betters. Thanks so much for joining us, and I look forward to being with you tomorrow.